A new expansion pack just got announced for The Sims 4. Yes, another one, our third in a year. And of course, it was Adventure Awaits. And so I wanted to sit down based on the trailer, based on the blog post that we've already seen about this. Obviously, it is kind of one of those packs that feels like it is very much going to depend on the systems that are introduced, kind of like For Rent, kind of like Businesses and Hobbies. And I feel like with packs that focus so heavily on new systems being introduced, you kind of have to wait for the gameplay trailer for them to actually go into any depth or detail about what you actually can and can't do and kind of what we're expecting from this pack. But I wanted to do my own little wish list. A lot of these are based off what we've seen and like features that are being introduced and how I would like them to kind of play out within our games. And then I probably do have a couple that are like far too far out of the realm of reality of what The Sims 4 can actually do. But you know, every simmer likes to dream a little bit. So for my first one, we are of course gonna talk about Imaginary Friends. Probably the thing that I'm most excited for. I absolutely adored Imaginary Friends in Sims 3 Generations. I am so happy that they are making a return. I think they fit into the Sims 4 art style really nicely. Fairly sure they showed off all 4 of the new Imaginary Friends in that one scene in the trailer that kind of like pans across the kids camp. They're all kind of sat in different positions, and obviously our main kid, I've forgotten his name, I'm so sorry to that man. If I saw him walking down the street, I wouldn't know a thing. I want to call him Erwin, but I know that he's not called Erwin. Nigel, when we see Nigel, he obviously turns like the doll into the imaginary friend. So my biggest obvious hope for Imaginary Friends is that it takes from the Sims 3 Generations and we can actually turn them real. And what I mean by that is not just the costume that you see in the Sims 4. If you've never played Sims 3 Generations, don't worry, I'm gonna have a video going back and like playing it and like playing with Imaginary Friends before the release of this new pack, so we can kind of like compare and contrast as to how they work. But in The Sims 3, you actually, I think you had to reach level 10 of kind of the sciencey child skill. I can't for the life of me remember what it is called off the top of my head. And then you'd learn a potion that actually made your imaginary friend come to life. And with that, they would become an actual sim. So they would add on to your family as a sim. I know a lot of simmers had like their sims fall in love and marry their imaginary friends. I obviously did that with Belle and Patterns in my Generations Let's Play. So I really want them to, one, turn real, but two, I want it to be a challenge. Like, I don't know if I just want it to be like, hey, reach level 10 in, I can't even remember what it's called in The Sims 4, the smart one. Not imagination, not social, mental. The mental skill, kind of hoping that it's not just like reach level 10, even though level 10 in the mental skill does actually feel quite kind of difficult in The Sims 4. I hope there's just another thing that you have to do, because I feel like that's not the most challenging thing in The Sims 3. Skills went up a lot slower than they do in The Sims 4. Maybe they have mentioned like formative moments happening to your children, so maybe you have to go through like a specific like scenario or something like that within the game to get a formative moment to turn your friend into a real human. But I really hope that that is the case. I also hope, because they've spoken about like 4 distinctive personalities when it comes to the imaginary friends. They mention goofball, creative, competitive, and evil. Now these are actually all traits, obviously competitive being a new one that your sim can have in this pack. I hope that if your sim kind of has the opposite trait to your imaginary friend, that they can actually have beef. I hope that if they have like misaligned values or misaligned traits, that they actually don't get along with their imaginary friend. Maybe they become an imaginary enemy, and you could therefore be like, no, I'm keeping you as a doll for like all eternity. I would also love it if maybe there was a way to like play as the imaginary friend and like have them make themselves real, just to like taunt your Sims forever if they do have mismatching personalities. I just personally think that would be really, really fun. I would love it if you could actually add an imaginary friend into your household and have them playable, even in their like imaginary status. I haven't played with them in a hot minute in The Sims 3, so I don't know if that was actually an option. I swear I remember seeing their creepy little faces in my like family panel. Like I added them to my family before, or maybe they just had a disguise. That would be sick as well. Like being able, the way that you can in The Sims 4 with occults having like a dark form or like a werewolf form or a fairy form, if you could flip-flop between your imaginary friend status, like the actual like costume of it all, and then the real human side, and you could kind of decide if you wanted to be in your imaginary friend form or your like realistic Sim form. I would like to see it. But yeah, I really hope that there can be beef, imaginary enemies, all of that. Just have imaginary friends like taunt their Sims, because like so many Simmers already find them creepy. It would be so funny if they could basically just haunt your Sim and you could play it out that way. I've already mentioned the formative moments. They have mentioned that going through those formative moments can give you new traits. Now, I'm wondering if those are basically just the same as like reward traits that you can like purchase or that you get for completing an aspiration, in which it just adds on to like your traits as a bonus. It's not a new trait slot. Or if they mean like, hey, if you have this formative moment, then you actually like get a new trait slot and you get to like pick a new trait, or a new trait is assigned to you, kind of the way that you can for adult Sims when they actually go through moments of you playing and being like, hey, I think I'm a love bug now, or I think I'm like unromantic, etc. So are we finally gonna get more trait slots for children, like bonus trait slots that actually are traits that we have within the game? We'll just have to wait and see. I was also super confused by the children's sentiments, because kids can already get sentiments in the game. They have described these as evolving towards Sims you grow up with. So I'm thinking the only ones that I can really think of are like BFFs, first crush or love, maybe your first bully, for example, and then that maybe defines like your relationship with those Sims as you grow up. They did actually mention, and they made sure to point this out, that Nigel, the kid that was like the main kid in the trailer, and then his two friends that he grew up with, now an adult and lifelong Gibby Point resident, Nigel enthusiastically serves as camp director alongside his two best buds, Raheel and Toshi. Obviously, we already have BFFs in the game, but I imagine as maybe like a sentiment, and they've said that these evolve, which makes me think that they probably could potentially tie into like the emotion system. Obviously, they're gonna like appear in your relationship panel, but is the reason that he is like a lifelong Gibby Point resident is because he didn't want to move away from his BFFs? Maybe you can feel like a sad emotion if you move to like a new world or a new neighborhood and you're not like surrounded by those best friends. I would love it if we did get like a first crush or a first love situation, maybe if you are a teenager. I know they specifically spoke about children, but potentially that could develop from first crush into a first love as a teenager. And then how sick would it be if your Sim, like on their wedding day, got like struck by the thought of their first love and they were like, oh no, can I really like go ahead with this? And then they stand like their future partner up at the altar because they can't get this like first love out of their head. And I know that these are all kind of things that we could already do within the game, like using our imagination. However, I do think that like having that officially within the game and kind of having these moments of sway, it kind of reminds me of that scenario with like the work enemies, which I haven't actually played out to its fullest. I kind of want to make a video on that, because remember when scenarios were a thing? And that kind of gives me like those childhood sentiments towards Sims where you have an enemy at work and then you have like all of this beef. I imagine that's the same with like maybe if you have like your first bully, then you grow up and you're super hard to get along with that person as an adult, because you have these like formative memories of this person being an asshole. Let's be real, I really just want childhood sentiments, children's sentiments, to actually affect our game the way that I felt sentiments should have always affected our game. If you are like mad at someone, there should be a state that you are mad at them. You don't want to talk to them if they come and talk to you. You just do mean interactions with them, and it actually has an effect on your gameplay, your relationships, because right now sentiments do not do that. I hope this is just a way, honestly, for them to look at sentiments in general. We're already kind of talking about children, so we're gonna stick with like the themes that we've seen for kids. Hide and seek. I really hope that hide and seek is actually active. I hope that if you are one of the Sims who is like hiding, then you can actually choose where your Sim is gonna hide. I'm gonna be really annoyed if my Sim just chooses a cardboard box all of the time. I don't want it to just be an interaction that you click on and then the game like plays out in front of you, kind of the way that like snowball fights do or like water fights do, but you can actively be like, oh, like you as a player have to search around to find these Sims. You'd be like, was that box here before? Creating your own prop hunt would just also be hilarious. Like imagine creating a lot that's just filled with cardboard boxes. Can a builder please do this? Just like all the cardboard boxes that we have in the game, size them up, size them down, place them all over, basically just a like scrapyard of cardboard boxes, and then have child Sims go and play hide and seek and just see like how many boxes seem off. But yeah, I really hope you can choose where you want to hide, and I really hope that we as a player have to find the kids and it's not just like an animation that plays out in front of us. I've always said that I really want The Sims 4 to have like mini games, such as if your Sim was playing a video game, you also have the opportunity to opt in to playing that game, kind of like in Life is Strange True Colors, where you play the arcade games in Stardew Valley. Like you physically play those arcade games as the player. I would really love that. It can be an opt-in thing. You could just probably turn it off in the settings, or you could just say like, no, this time around, I literally just want my Sim to play it. But I think that there should be some mini games. And I feel like hide and seek / prop hunt can kind of do that. We saw a Sim in this screenshot right here actually using the little fortune teller, also the fairy bread. I don't know if anyone else pointed out like the fairy bread, but I hope that with those little like fortune tellers, you actually get a fortune told to you like by your friend. And I came up with just like a couple of examples. So maybe if they are doing like first crushes, maybe it can be like your crush is gonna like kiss your cheek or like hug you on this day, or they're gonna break your heart on this day, you're gonna get divorced. How cute would it be if they could have like little pretend marriages as kids? We used to do that literally all the time in school. I was always the bridesmaid, I'll have you know. I never wanted to have a pretend marriage or divorce with anybody. Or maybe like you're gonna get into a kayak accident on this day, and then they could have like a moodlet of like looming fear about that for like the next couple of days, and then maybe they do start to drown in a kayak, or the kayak starts to like fill up, or it could just like all be made up and they actually don't buy into it. I just hope that there's some like element of gameplay and surprise tied to the fortune tellers, because not gonna lie, I do think the tarot cards were disappointing. I wish that the tarot cards actually had like more gameplay tied to them. I want to know, people who are interested in tarot reading, how did you feel about it in The Sims 4? Because personally, it fell flat for me, but I would like to hear like what you actually think about it. I just think they could have tied it into like game scenarios and things happening to your Sims way more than they did. It's basically just a notification that actually doesn't do anything. And then for the play area that we have seen is actually modular. They did show off like putting two like square pieces together like side by side, but they didn't show it in like a square. They look like they are 2x2s, but I would really love it if you could join them together to make like a 4x4. And I really hope that if you do that, if you add those platforms together to create like a large space, that hopefully you can actually place some items down on it. Kind of hoping they work the same way as tree houses do in that sense, and you can like put down a couple of bean bags or little places for your Sims to maybe sleep. That it's kind of like a modular climbing frame treehouse that you can also have other activities on, just to make it a little bit more interactive. Right now, we've only really seen like kids playing on it and interacting with the slides, with the stairs, and not actually like interacting or seeing any objects on them. With the career, obviously, I would love it to be active. This is the park worker. They said that you can become a camp counselor or a ranger, I think. Perfect for keeping adventure alive all year round, which I don't know, that kind of makes me think that it could potentially be active because you'd like actively be playing your sim, like adventuring around and like looking after things. I just really like the naturopath career. I actually said this in my video reacting to the trailer, but I think the naturopath career was probably the best part about Enchanted by Nature for me. I really like the way that they did it, where you could work from home if you wanted to and you actively like had Sims come round to your lot. I think that acting as like an actual camp counselor would be so cool. However, I also would really love it if teens could be camp counselors, and I don't know how that would work because teenagers can't get full-time careers. So I'm like toying with the idea of like, do I want this to be like a fully active full-time career or what? Because then I'm worried that teens actually won't be able to interact with it. And I actually have a storyline set up in my Townie Makeovers in the, I'm trying to think of the household. I think it's the Price household, Sydney. Yeah, so I have Sydney, obviously older brother, has a younger brother, and I have both of them wearing like matching camp outfits, and my headcanon is that obviously the little brother is in like the Scouts. Sydney was also in Scouts, and so Sydney like goes to camp with his little brother and like is a camp counselor and looks after the kids because he had such a fun time. And I feel like that's kind of what they showed with the camp director, but then they mentioned camp counselor as part of the career and not camp director. I also really hope that there is a tie-in with the kids camp and Scouts that we got with seasons for those players who do have seasons. I imagine that whilst you are at kids camp, you will actually be able to receive some of those badges. I don't think there's going to be like a ceremony or anything like that. I don't think it's going to be that in depth, even though that would be really cool. I say that would be cool, but I hate the ceremony at prom because it takes just like far too long for Sims to like interact or do anything. So maybe I wouldn't want that to be a ceremony, but I do imagine that if you are like meeting new friends and you are like out and about, your kayaking, etc., you probably are gonna earn some badges. The custom venues was probably the most confusing thing to me throughout all of this, even like the information that I've read, and they like really glossed over it. I think probably the custom venues and then obviously like the getaway system is what we are going to go most in depth with when it comes to the gameplay. I think they'll actually talk about like these new systems and how they work. I'm kind of expecting the getaway system to practically be built off the system that we got with businesses and hobbies. Someone was like, oh, I hope that you can have a like horse riding camp, and I replied and put, probably not, because in my heart, I truly believe that they won't have gone back and fixed like riding together, etc. I'm fairly sure that like riding horses wasn't even an option in businesses and hobbies. I do think that like caring for animals and stuff was, but from off the top of my head, I don't think riding horses was an option. And also they can't like ride horses together in a group. So I personally don't think that will be included. I think all the activities that are included in businesses and hobbies will probably transfer over to this new system. So I reckon we could go look at businesses and hobbies now and be like, yeah, like I imagine this in a getaway system, and like you could probably base ideas off the features that we got in businesses and hobbies. But then I was thinking, aren't all venues like custom? Like we build venues, like we customize them ourselves. They say build and decorate your unique custom venues however you want. That's what we have been doing this entire time, Sims team. Decide what kind of activities are available there. Again, like we've always been able to build like a bar with a pool as well. Like this is the thing, like we've always been able to do that, but then it says share it to the gallery for others to enjoy. The only difference that I can think, and again, this is kind of where businesses and hobbies system like comes into this, is that you'll either be able to schedule, because they say schedule activities for getaways that will help your Sims recharge, maybe meet new friends, etc. So I wonder if you'll actually be able to like schedule like on a set timer what you actually want Sims in that custom venue to do and when you want them to do it. So for example, if you do have like a bar and a pool, maybe throughout the day you have them like just get drinks and then swim in the pool. And then at nighttime, maybe the pool is closed off and it turns into like more of a club so they can go dancing. So you would kind of remove the swimming and then you'd put in like dancing as an activity. That is the only thing that I can think of that these unique custom venues would do that would be different. Is kind of like shift the way that they do in businesses and hobbies. They kind of allow your Sims to focus on like one thing and then they can switch and focus on the next thing, or they kind of like are not split super evenly, I would say, in businesses and hobbies. I'm trying to think what's weighted really, really badly, because there was one frustration that I had with businesses and hobbies. I think it was maybe that the classes were weighted so heavily, or just doing like an activity like making jewelry, for example. There was something where they were kind of conflicting with each other, because one was weighted way more heavily than the other, and it just meant that they like weren't doing things. I think it was classes and like actively doing an activity over buying. Like if you wanted Sims to just buy stuff, you practically couldn't have like those other things going on, because they always went to the actual activity rather than just purchasing stuff. So I wonder if this is kind of their way to bring that to venues, but then also allow you as the player to schedule when you want those things to happen, so they don't face the same issue that they did in businesses and hobbies. Like I said, currently there are bars. There was one introduced in San Myshuno that has a pool. I don't think I've barely seen a Sim in that pool in San Myshuno, in that bar. Like they all just kind of focus on the bar drinks like way more. However, it does feel very culty to be like, okay, at this time we want this to happen specifically. They do actually say transform your beachfront lot that serves smoothies by day into a bustling dance club by night. That gives me the idea that you'll be able to schedule Sims from stopping drinking smoothies by like, let's say 6 p.m. and then from 6 p.m. onwards, they purchase juiced drinks or like any form of a bar drink over a smoothie, and then you have them dance. That's the only thing that I can think of that these custom venues are gonna do more differently. I kind of like threw out the idea of, I wonder if we'll be able to kind of make like malls based on that. So maybe around lunchtime you encourage Sims to go eat at the food court, and then other times they can go like purchase items. They could go like play with toys in a toy shop. You're about to be Belly in that glass shop, sat on the floor. It'll be interesting, I think, to see what Simmers can actually do with a system like that, but also it does feel kind of weird that everyone will just like shift suddenly if you can schedule these things. We also found out about the romantic competition eliminations. Obviously, Love Highland, the like preset one that is actually shipping with this pack, is very heavily based on Love Island. We saw Don Lothario not being able to flirt with Dina or Nina Caliente. They had already like paired off with two other people, and so he got eliminated. So that one kind of feels like maybe it's whoever has like the least like romance bar with someone gets eliminated. But I do hope that they have taken inspiration from community challenges that simmers have been posting for years, and kind of also have maybe focused on a bachelor, so that you could set it up that you choose the romanceable, like the one romanceable that you kind of want everyone to gravitate towards. However, we've kind of been able to do those things. It sits in the realm of like Dream Home Decorator for me. It sits in the realm of like Love Struck for me, where we could already do those things. They're kind of just giving you an official in-game system to, I guess, potentially, we don't even know if they're gonna make our lives easier as simmers. And if you've never done like a bachelor challenge, you've never done like a Love Island challenge, then you might not have any rhyme or reason to like use these things. But I always struggle when it's something that we've always been able to do in the game using our imagination, and then they're just like, well, we're gonna make a system for this, and it's just like, okay, cool, like, okay, we have like programming behind it now, but we were always able to do these things and we could always just use our imagination. I don't know. I don't really like packs that kind of sit in that kind of area. I don't like Dream Home Decorator for that reason. Also like the glitches that it originally shipped with, but I guess I'll have to wait and see until I get my hands on it to see if it does actually play out any better than I could originally, you know? I didn't even see this sim climbing up the slide. Stop, that's so funny. And this kid like smushing their face against this. Absolutely disgusting. One minor thing, this is the last one kind of on my wish list, but panning for gold. I honestly cannot believe that they didn't include this in the trailer. From what I remember seeing, I don't think like a shot like this was ever included. I saw this and I was like, they can pan for gold. This was one of my favorite things to do as a child. Gulliver's World hated to see me coming because I would just pan for fool's gold the entire afternoon. But I really hope that they include fool's gold as like a new metal, and also that maybe we get some like new crystals and stuff. This sim is talking or like thinking about crystals, so I imagine you can just find collections whilst panning for gold, which I'm never gonna complain about a new way to find collections. Collections are actually one of my favorite things in this game. I enjoy like the adventure of going out and like exploring your worlds to find new stuff. But yeah, I hope that maybe there's a little bit of a tie-in if we do get fool's gold, that it's a little bit cheaper to create if you have like crystal creations, because it's not like real. Look at this sim hiding behind this bush and this fence. And there we have it. There is my wish list. It always feels really weird to do a wish list when we've already seen the trailer, because I feel like I don't let my imagination run as wild. Probably the biggest one where I'm gonna be disappointed, I fear, is the childhood sentiments. Like, I just really want sentiments to be better than they are, and I just feel like the way that they use the word like evolving and change towards like Sims whilst you're growing up, I think that could be cool, but I do think I am probably gonna be disappointed. But I will wait and I will judge when I actually see it. I'm still the most confused by custom venues. I'll be so for real. I feel like what I have said makes sense in my brain, but I would of course absolutely love to hear your theories on what those custom venues could be, because when I first watched it I was like, isn't every lot like custom based on what a simmer builds? And I would of course also love to hear your wish list based on what we have seen. Maybe a couple of things of potentially what we haven't seen. The systems for sure are like a big question mark right now. I do feel like they've been leaning heavy on the get-togetherness of it all recently. But thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will speak to you all in my next one. Can't wait to scar you all people with Sims 3 imaginary friends. I can't wait to play as them. I have missed those little weirdos.